Fox News Alert now. Breaking news from overnight. An American woman and her family are coming home finally. They've been held in captivity for 5 years by a Taliban-affiliated group, and now they are free. This is some good news to start the day today. I'm Bill Hemmer, live here in America's Newsroom. Hello.
Good morning to you, Bill. I'm Sandra Smith. The news breaking just about 1 hour ago. Caitlin Coleman was 7 months pregnant when she and her Canadian-born husband were kidnapped while hiking in Afghanistan. They and their 2 children, who have never known a life outside captivity, are now back in American hands. Kevin Cork is live at the White House. Kevin, when do we expect the White House to weigh in on this rescue?
Well, listen, you're right about the fact that this is very good news. And while we have reached out to White House officials, we continue to await word. At least in this instance, the comm shop is still a few steps behind. The very good news, as you point out, that an American family, an American woman and her Canadian husband and her 3 children are on their way home. They had been held captive by a Taliban-affiliated group called the Haqqani Network. They've been rescued. They've been held in Afghanistan since 2012, last seen on a hostage video back in December of 2016, pleading for help, asking then-President Obama to not be another Jimmy Carter. Well, last night at a rally in Pennsylvania, by the way, that's Coleman's home state, President Trump alluded to the news during a speech on tax reform.
America is being respected again. Something happened today where a country that totally disrespected us called with some very, very important news. And one of my generals came in. They said, you know, I have to tell you, a year ago they would have never done that. It was a great sign of respect. You'll probably be hearing about it over the next few days.
Well, listen, this is obviously very good news, not just for the administration, but for the entire American family. And this is interesting because it comes, Sandra, after the administration promised to get tougher on Pakistan and its harboring of terrorist groups like the Taliban.
We'll likely to learn more about that in the coming minutes. Kevin, stick around a minute because we've got another big story breaking. President Trump set to sign an executive order later this morning that promises to partially unravel Obamacare. This after touting his tax reform plan last night. Take a listen.
We are here today to discuss our vision for America's economic revival, which has already started. It started on November 8th. We want lower taxes, bigger paychecks, and more jobs for American truckers and for American workers. When your trucks are moving, America is growing. We are going to protect thousands of family businesses by ending the crushing, horrible, and unfair estate tax, sometimes known as the death tax.
Kevin, what's the latest on this tax plan from the White House this morning?
Well, listen, this is just a step in the right direction. That's what White House officials are saying. And by the way, they do acknowledge that given what happened with health care reform, the defeat on health care reform, at least to this point, they recognize this is a long and hard fight ahead for tax reform, but still, they acknowledge also that the fact that the president is talking about this, is willing to get out there and tell the American people what his ideas are, is a net victory for the American people. They know this based on the response, not just from the crowd last night in Pennsylvania, but as they continue to take their ideas across the country. The president saying this will reduce taxes on the middle class, make America more competitive from a corporate tax rate perspective, and even increase family take-home pay to the tune of about $4,000. By the way, he's also talking about health care reform. Let me just share a bit of what we expect to come out of an executive order later today, Sandra. The president is expected to talk about allowing individuals and small businesses to band together, creating so-called healthcare associations. Also, the plan, he says, will mandate coverage include maternity, prescription drugs, mental health, and addiction treatment. And he's expected to announce a major change in the Obama-era limits on short-term health insurance plans. That means you'll be able to buy cheaper insurance for longer periods of time. They may not cover as much, but certainly if you don't have the cash to spend a lot, that could be a solution for you as well. Now, critics are saying that states' attorneys general around the country will be suing to prevent the deconstruction of the Affordable Care Act, but the White House is moving forward with every little step that they can take to try to make it happen, Sandra.
Kevin Cork on a busy morning at the White House. Thank you, sir.
It certainly is a lot to cover right now with Charlie Hurd, opinion editor, Washington Times, Fox News contributor. Charlie, good morning to you.
Good morning, Bill.
Going to go in reverse order here. Clearly, this is good news with this American family now coming home.
It's tremendous news, not only for the family, that was rescued, but also in terms of politics for Donald Trump, this fits right into the story, the argument that he's been making, that there's a new sheriff in town, that the world has kind of perked up a little bit and realizes that there's a new leadership in the United States. It's no longer the Obama administration doing whatever they can to cobble together even a bad deal with Iran or North Korea's continued development of nuclear weapons. This is a different administration, and you have, and that's during that speech where President Trump last night hinted to this, talking about the new respect. All of that is, I think, part of him gearing up to sort of make his argument for re-election.
Yeah, selling, right?
He's always selling.
The details for the release have not been made public, but they will be fascinating when we get them. Quickly now, health care. Signs an executive order 2 hours from now. Is this the beginning of the end of Obamacare, or is this just nibbling around the edges, Charlie?
Well, I think that it very well could be the beginning of the end. What we're going to see here is a lot of people, there are going to be thousands of people around the country in small businesses who wind up with cheaper health care. It may not be the perfect health care, but it'll be cheaper health care. This will be a very good thing for them. And, of course, if this is just nibbling around the edges, if you have another executive order, from a different president in the future that comes and tries to take it away from him, that's something that'll be tough to do. That'll be taking something away from people, and we all know that's not what.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's not very easy to do around
quickly,
here.
I'm going to hit you on taxes. I take this speech last night as the opening bid, let's say. How does it look? And can something even similar to this, of what's proposed, pass Congress?
I think so, and I think the reason is because you have a president who is selling it, first of all, who's very involved in it. He understands this issue very well, understands it a lot better than he did health care, and I think that Republicans are on notice now that if they don't come to the table and figure out some way to make this work, it's going to be devastating for Republicans. And Donald Trump, it was a very populist speech. I could very easily see Donald Trump saying, okay, Republicans, if you can't come together and make something work, I'm going to go over here to the Democrats and see if I can't make something work with them.
That's on the table too, right? We've seen that. Thank you, Charlie Hurt. Instant analysis there in D.C. Thanks, Sandra.
Much more on the tax reform push. Gary Cohn, director of the National Economic Council and one of the people at the forefront of the process, will join us coming up in the next hour. He's called it, Bill, an opportunity of a lifetime to overhaul the tax system in this country. So we are very much looking forward to what he has to say.
He's in the thick of it. Business is your background based on what you have heard so far. How does it sound? Is this 2017 or is it 1986?
Look, tax cuts are going to be welcomed across the board. However, I'm sure you saw the LA Times piece this morning. Some Republicans in Congress talking about scaling back some of those key provisions. The corporate tax rate right now, 20% is what the president says. Is that open to negotiation? We'll likely discuss that with Gary Cohn.
How about everything's open to negotiation at the moment? All right, cool. 8 minutes past the hour now.
At least 23 people are now confirmed dead in the massive wildfires raging in California wine country. The flames have destroyed some 3,500 homes and businesses, burning entire communities to the ground.
This is my neighborhood in flames. Completely in flames. Oh my God.
Robert Gray is reporting live from Napa for us this morning. Robert, with the fires displacing so many people, what is the scene like there in Napa this morning?
Well, Sandra, very quiet this morning. Many of the roads are blocked off. Many of the ways out of Napa are blocked off. Some local residents telling me there is concern about that. And even though they haven't ordered a mandatory evacuation in the city of Napa, some families are already moving down away from Napa, getting out of the hills, if you will, because of that. Concerns about a bottleneck. And if you look at the Napa Valley Register out early this morning, you can see the headlines, "At the mercy of the wind," and that is exactly what is happening here. The winds blowing these fires so quickly. They really have this area all on edge. Take a look behind me. You can see this home here. We're talking multi-million-dollar homes here, reduced to rubble. Folks sometimes only having a couple of minutes to gather themselves, much less any things to go outside. You can see behind me there's a Harley Davidson that's been burned out. Several cars, 3 cars here you can see on camera, 2 trucks off camera,
all of this damage happening so quickly. And as you may be able to see in the darkness here in Napa at the moment, though, Sandra, it looks almost like snow is falling. The ash is so thick, and you can see the smoke, and we can occasionally getting whiffs of pine, some pine trees or something still smoldering off in the distance.
Difficult to even look at the pictures there, Robert. Can't imagine what those people are going through. Robert Gray, thank you.
23 dead. I mean, it's just really remarkable. President Trump now filling a key cabinet post, promoting a top White House aide as the next Secretary of Homeland Security. We'll tell you why the choice will make history in a moment.
Plus, Hillary Clinton now reacting to the Harvey Weinstein scandal, saying she will give to charity any donations the movie executive gave to her campaign. But why did the decision take so long? We shall debate that.
Also, the president said to be furious over the Iran deal. He said as much publicly. Why he says it's the most incompetent deal he has ever seen and what he plans to do about it this week.
This is the worst deal. We got nothing. We got nothing. So I'm not giving anything away, but I've been saying this for a long time. You have people dancing and screaming in the streets of Iran.
A big move now by the White House. President Trump nominating his deputy chief of staff, Kristen Nielsen, to be the next Homeland Security Secretary, pending confirmation by the Senate. Nielsen was the former chief of staff to John Kelly when he was DHS secretary and was special assistant to former President George W. Bush, and the first nominee for the position to have previously worked for DHS.
I think it was one of the most incompetently drawn deals I've ever seen. $150 billion given. We got nothing. We got nothing. They got a path to nuclear weapons very quickly. And think of this one, $1.7 billion in cash. This is cash out of your pocket.
That's from President Trump last night with Sean Hannity in Pennsylvania, ripping that Iran nuclear deal as we await his decision on whether or not he will recertify the agreement. Deadline is Saturday. Adam Kinzinger, Illinois Republican, member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Sir, how are you? You had a big hearing yesterday, and thank you for being here today. Apparently, based on reports, he's going to kick it to Congress. What then?
Yeah, so it's going to put, if this happens, I've been briefed on what he's going to do. Obviously, I don't want to confirm or deny anything until he gives his speech, which I think the speech is actually going to give a broader interpretation of the full strategy. Right now, people are just hearing pieces of what he's potentially going to do. But I think when the president outlines the broad strategy, it's going to make a lot of sense. With decertification, you know, look, I can see both what the chairman of Foreign Affairs says and when he says just keep it but enforce it. But the decertification, the good thing about that is it's going to give us an opportunity, I think, to bring our allies back on board and to negotiate with Iran a deal that makes sense. Because look at what we have right now. Ballistic missile development, like we're seeing in North Korea right now.
Significant.
Yes, and it's exempt from this deal. This doesn't even address it. And I asked one of the witnesses, the administration witness yesterday from the prior administration, and he said, yeah, we started with ballistic missiles in this deal, but we knew we couldn't get to a deal, so we took them out. So obviously we were willing to throw the kitchen sink at this.
I'm just reading from the Washington Post. The president will declare the deal is not in the U.S. national interest. That's pretty apparent from his reaction for the past year and a half, while stopping short of recommending renewed nuclear sanctions. You invoked the chairman of your committee, Ed Royce. He was here yesterday, and this is what he said he would do.
I would, as I said, I would enforce the hell out of the current agreement.
You would talk the president out of decertifying?
Right. What I would do is I would keep the existing agreement and add to it.
Said he'd enforce the hell out of it, as you heard. He said that numerous times in an interview yesterday. Why not go that route, as he suggests?
Well, I think I think that's a good route. I think the chairman's route is good. I've said that, you know, we need to basically look for any violations of this agreement. The problem is when you're looking at violating the technicality of the agreement versus the spirit of the agreement, it's a very different thing. Iran is violating the spirit of the agreement, whether or not they're violating the technicality. But I think decertification, and again, as the president, I think will explain this in a broader way that we can understand a broader engagement, but it gives us an opportunity. He's not tearing the deal up and going home. home. He's saying we're decertifying it, and it's going to allow, hopefully, the Europeans, the Iranians, and us to come back and say, here's some holes we need to fill. As an example, the IAEA gets mailed in some of the soil samples from Iran that says, yeah, trust me, it's from here.
They don't have physical access to the sites.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of the military sites. Deal.
Right.
I want to try and figure out how Iran responds in my final question here. This statement came out on Monday on screen. If the news is correct about the stupidity of the American government in considering the Revolutionary Guard a terrorist group, then the Revolutionary Guards will consider the American army to be like Islamic State all around the world. You know this administration, James Mattis, President Trump, they've got a big problem with the entire region stemming from Tehran. What does Iran do? Can they cause more problems than we have already today? Does that concern you?
Well, I think they can cause more problems. Keep in mind, about a quarter of the American soldiers killed in Iraq were killed because of Iran. That's right. Something important to remember. You know, right now we saw after this deal that they were emboldened and had money to destabilize the region. So I don't put anything past Iran. They're the major destabilizing force in the Middle East, and they constantly talk about how they want to wipe Israel off the map. We have to take them serious at that. But I think the president, as well as talking about this deal, the JCPOA, is going to outline how we're going to address Iran more broadly. And I think it's going to be refreshing because it's a strategy that we haven't heard articulated for years.
The point is they can still mess with us, Congressman,
in
a big way.
That's true. That's true. And you know what? International politics is a messy game. And when we've ceded leadership in that region for 8 years, we can see sometimes some difficult things. But have no doubt, Americans should have no doubt the American military and American diplomacy is way better than anything Iran can think of.
Amen to that. Adam Kinzinger, thank you for your time. Republican from Illinois. Thank you on Capitol Hill today.
Bill, we're following breaking developments in the battle over sanctuary cities. What we're learning about a, quote, last chance from the Justice Department. That in moments.
Also, President Trump saying that tax cuts will amount to a big pay raise for average Americans, every household. We'll look at that claim with Ronald Reagan's former economic advisor, Art Laffer, coming up.
Remember the expression, made in the USA, made in America? You don't hear that so much, but you're now starting to hear it again.
There were dozens of protesters greeting Education Secretary Betsy DeVos. She was at a high school outside Portland, Oregon yesterday. She's disputing the claims on behalf of protesters that she does not support public education, saying she wants every child to get a great education regardless of their school.
I think we should focus less on the word that comes before school and more on what we're doing to make sure each individual child has the opportunity to become everything they can be.
She also says she was at that school because of its high achievement rates in Portland, Oregon.
The Justice Department taking new action against sanctuary cities, giving them what's being described as a last chance to comply with federal immigration law. Garrett Tenney is live in Washington. Garrett, what is the Justice Department telling these cities?
Well, Sandra, this is essentially a final warning for 4 of the nation's largest cities that if they do not cooperate with specific federal immigration policies, they could be required to pay back millions of dollars in federal money. Today, the Justice Department sent letters to New York City, Philadelphia, New Orleans, and both Chicago and Cook County, Illinois, where the city resides, informing the jurisdictions that they are not properly sharing information with federal immigration authorities. This announcement comes after a review by DOJ, which announced in July new conditions for cities to be eligible for a specific set of federal grant money. In a statement with this latest warning, Attorney General Jeff Sessions said jurisdictions that adopt so-called sanctuary policies also adopt the view that the protection of criminal aliens is more important than the protection of law-abiding citizens and of the rule of law. I urge all jurisdictions found to be out of compliance in this preliminary review to reconsider the policies that undermine the safety of their residents. Now, if those cities don't change their policies, they could, in theory, be forced to pay back millions of dollars in grant money, and they have until October 27th to provide further evidence that they are in compliance. Sandra?
Garrett, how does this announcement relate to the ruling of a federal judge last month that blocked the government from withholding funds from sanctuary cities?
Yeah, so that case dealt with federal funding going forward, and today's announcement is looking at specific grants that have already been awarded and is essentially telling these cities that they may have not been in compliance with the requirements to receive those funds, which is why if they don't make changes or show evidence that they are in compliance, those millions of dollars in funding could, in theory, have to be paid back to the federal government.
All right, Garrett Tenney, thank you.
We have new developments now after this growing backlash as a result of the story around Harvey Weinstein. Hillary Clinton now says she will donate all the money given to her and her campaign to charity, as the top DNC donor is facing multiple sexual assault allegations. Our panel will take on all that next. Plus, there is...
A Yankee stunner keeping a lot of folks up last night. The baby bombers, doing what many thought was impossible. Bill, did you lose any sleep last night? The Game 5 stunner. Next.
He got it for the second time.
Take a look. Stocks just opening on Wall Street after the big tax speech by the president last night. There's been a lot of optimism over tax reform, and you are still seeing the stock market at record highs, but opening to the downside. Just a few seconds ago, the Dow off 31 points to start off the session.
Been on a roll, though, haven't we? I mean, it's been green arrows for months now. Day by day, the sex scandal surrounding Harvey Weinstein taking another dramatic turn yet again. TMZ reporting that his daughter called 911 claiming he was depressed and suicidal during an argument. And now more of the victims of the alleged abuse are telling their stories publicly. Jonathan Hunt has more now live in L.A., where it's been the talk of the town there. Are we certain where Weinstein is now, Jonathan?
Well, his movements have been something of a mystery over the last few days. There was that 911 call from his daughter's house. He was actually seen on camera, caught there by TMZ cameras after that, and he actually told those cameras, "I'm not doing okay, Bill." Then last night, a private plane left Van Nuys Airport, north and west of downtown LA. Our cameras at KSAZ, our Phoenix affiliate, then caught that same plane landing in Arizona, and a person who looked like Harvey Weinstein from that distance, at least, getting off of that plane, entering a black Cadillac. Now, that plane landed near a very well-known rehab facility called Maddow. So the thinking is that Harvey Weinstein this morning is waking up on his way to that rehab facility, or perhaps even already checked in. In the meantime, a lot more women coming forward. Actress Cara Delevingne among the big names, now saying that she too was assaulted by Harvey Weinstein, and other big names within the entertainment industry like Annette Bening saying this has to stop. Listen here.
It's an important moment and maybe a turning point. I hope it's a tipping point. The fact that all these women have been brave enough to come out and speak, I respect enormously, and I'm glad that they're getting a lot of support.
Now, there is a lot of talk here in Hollywood, as you alluded to, Bill, that this is just the tip of the iceberg. There may be more to come on Harvey Weinstein. There may be a lot more to come on other powerful male executives in Hollywood over the last couple of decades.
Talk about the law. What's the likelihood of charges in a case like this?
Well, certainly Harvey Weinstein appears to be preparing for the possibility of charges. He has hired at least one high-profile criminal defense attorney, so he may be preparing for it. We also know that the New York Police Department, and remember, Harvey Weinstein spent a lot of his time in Manhattan, is looking into his entire background now, is asking other potential victims to come forward. So he is getting ready for that. The other question of criminality here relates to the company itself, the Weinstein Company. What did they know and when did they know it? The company put out a statement saying, quote, "The Weinstein Company's Board of Representatives are shocked and dismayed by the recently emerged allegations of extreme sexual misconduct and sexual assault by Harvey Weinstein. These alleged actions are antithetical to human decency. These allegations come as an utter surprise to the board." But, Bill, the New York Times, which broke the original story, as you know, is reporting this morning that the Weinstein Company was aware of settlements made by Harvey Weinstein at least as early as 2015. So it's not hard to imagine there are a lot of lawsuits being prepared right now.
Jonathan Hunt, more to come on all that. Thank you. Reporting from Los Angeles. Sandra.
Meantime, Hillary Clinton, after facing criticism for her initial silence over the scandal, now saying she will donate Weinstein's money to charity. Take a look.
I was just sick. I was shocked. I was appalled.
Would you have called him a friend?
Yes, I probably would have.
He donated money to you directly and indirectly. Would you give the money back?
Well, there's no one to give it back to. What other people are saying, what my former colleagues are saying, is they're going to donate it to charity. And of course I will do that. I give 10% of my income to charity every year. This will be part of that.
Doug Schoen is a former advisor to President Clinton and a Fox News contributor, and Matt Schlapp, former White House political director for President George W. Bush and a chairman of the American Conservative Union. Matt, it took her days to respond, and that was on the heels of criticism from her own party for not coming out quickly and responding to this.
Yeah, I am so tired of hearing from Hillary Clinton. She's making me miss Barack Obama. She has no credibility on this whole set of issues. I know she thinks that she's a voice for women, but she'll never be that credible voice for the women I know and the women I live with, because she was the person who went after Bill Clinton's accusers and attackers. And if we must believe women, we must believe those women who also made the accusations against her own husband. And what I would advise her to do is really look inside and say, if we all bear some culpability when we see this disgusting behavior, she also bears that. And let's make peace with all of these terrible tragedies we've dealt with, including the tragedies perpetrated by her own husband.
You heard Hillary Clinton, Doug Schoen, that was barely acknowledging this man as a friend. If you look back to just 2015, the Clintons rented a home next to Weinstein in the Hamptons. To say she doesn't know who to give the money back to, though, in that interview last night. I donate 10% of my charity money to charity every year. My income, she said. Well, this is campaign donations.
Yeah, look, I must tell you, I don't disagree with the substance of what Matt said, though I have a good and strong relationship with Bill Clinton. I worked for him, didn't work for Hillary, and have had, as I've articulated on this and other programs, many problems with her. But I think the real issue is to move beyond this, figure out how much and how extensive the sexual abuse of women was, to commit ourselves to eradicating it in the workforce in Hollywood. And look, let's stop beating up on Hillary Clinton. She has plenty of culpability, I agree, but I think this is a much bigger problem than holding her accountable for what happened in the past or for what she didn't do for 5 days.
I don't know if beating up on Hillary is fair, Matt. I mean, when you look at her former running mate, Senator Tim Kaine, was asked why she hasn't responded to this yet. In the days that followed the announcement of this scandal, he said any leader should condemn Weinstein. He was even calling on her to speak up.
Look, I think it is, I'll give her the grace. When you learn something about a friend who did just the most horrendous things over and over again and was a serial abuser, it probably is shocking. You try to find your footing, but she lives with a man who did this as well and put the nation through hell. She lacks credibility. She's a woman at the end of her political career, I hope. What she ought to do is make peace with the women she attacked who made the accusations against her husband. If we're supposed to believe women, let's believe them, and let's make sure, I agree with Doug, let's root this out. Yeah. But let's make peace with what's happened in the past in our country, too.
And to be fair to both of your points, there can be a bit of shock if you learn something about a close friend like this. Yeah. She said this was a different side of a person who I and many others had known in the past. She used the words sick, shocked, and appalled by these allegations. I want to move on to the NFL.
Sure.
Donald Trump addressed the NFL in an interview with Sean Hannity on Fox News last night, basically saying they should have just suspended Colin Kaepernick, and we wouldn't be with this where we are today. Watch.
I watched Colin Kaepernick, and I thought it was terrible. And then it got bigger and bigger and started mushrooming. And frankly, the NFL should have suspended him for 1 game, and he would have never done it again. They could have then suspended him for 2 games, and they could have suspended him if he did it a 3rd time for the season, and you would never have had a problem. But I will tell you, you cannot disrespect our country, our flag, our anthem. You cannot do that.
What do you think, Matt? He said we would have never had this problem had the NFL acted quicker over a year ago with Colin Kaepernick.
I think he's exactly right. Look, the players for the NFL might be sure-footed on the field, but the NFL as a management structure has been a disaster when it comes to the challenges they have faced. It is a no-brainer to stand for the flag, to stand for the anthem, and it is a no-brainer to follow your own internal codes to make sure that the players are respecting that flag. Donald Trump had this completely right. He sometimes detects things in society that elites don't often see. He sees it. He was right to chastise them. This is a touchdown for Trump all the way.
All right, Doug, last word to you.
Yeah, look, it's not against NFL rules to take a knee during the national anthem. I think the real issue is bringing players together with owners and the league to deal with social issues. Yeah. Look, I'm a patriot. I stand for the flag. It gives me great pride, and it should give all of us. But let's stop blasting people. Let's come together to deal with common problems. We'd be better as a society, better as a people.
I'm not blasting you, Doug Schoen. I'm grateful
you never
for
do.
you coming on
Sandra,
with us.
you
Matt
never do.
Wonderful to see both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandra.
Thank you.
Nicely done. You went to bed early last night. You missed a wild 9 innings. Go home or advance. Yankees and Indians. Here's how it went down. Watch. Didi went deep twice for the Yankees. Pushed the Yankees to a 3-run lead. The Indians, though, they made a game of it, cutting it down to 1 run. But then Brett Gardner driving in 2 in the top of the 9th inning. And that is all New York would need. They put away the defending American League champs. Epic comeback, down 2 games to nothing to take the series 3 games to 2. So the Yankees will face the Houston Astros in the ALCS beginning tomorrow.
I can't believe I missed this one. But you know,
that was a good one.
It looks like a good one.
There's another great one tonight in Washington because your Cubs were unable to finish off the Nationals, so they'll go back to D.C. and play Game 5, and that will be a decided.
I got to go to sleep so early at night these days to wake up and come on the air with you.
I'm sorry.
So thanks for that.
I guess it's DVR time, right?
All right. President Trump sounding a rallying cry for the American economy.
We will bring back our jobs. We will bring back our wealth. And for every citizen across this land, we will bring back our great American dreams.
The president says tax reform can fix what's wrong with our economy and bring back jobs. We'll look at all of this with Reagan economic advisor Art Laffer next.
Also, charges mounting against 10 college students following the alleged hazing death of a fraternity pledge.
It's an accusation at this point. All the facts are not in. We maintain our innocence.
He's very sad about what happened, but he had nothing to do with those unfortunate circumstances.
We're going to keep people here till Christmas if we have to. I mean, I don't care. We got to get this done. I mean, it's just that important. And so we are actually on track timeline-wise.
So Santa's coming to town. House Speaker Paul Ryan earlier today indicating just how much a tax bill means for Congress. Boy, does it ever. Art Laffer, former economic advisor to President Ronald Reagan. How you doing, Art? This is your
I'm doing
topic,
very well,
brother.
Bill. Thank you.
Welcome on back. As an opening bid, do you like what you're hearing or not? Knowing that there's no
like
bill on paper. So go ahead, analyze it.
Yeah, I do like it, and I like it a lot. I mean, the key to me is the cutting of the corporate
tax rate from 35 to 20. I'd like to see it down to 15. But the president said that's a red line, and if he keeps his word on that it's a red line, which I think he will, I think it'll be really great.
Can I stop you there? Only because his red line might be 20, but I'm hearing that could go to 23 or 25. Say it were to go to 25, is that a big deal?
Yes, it's a huge deal. These things are highly levered, these numbers, and what you really have to do to get that down, Bill, is it really changes all the sheltering arguments, all the tax evasion arguments, all the source of business organization, bringing companies back from abroad. Going from 20 to 25 will dissipate the benefits a great deal. And they'll dissipate the benefits on real output employment and the jobs it'll create.
Okay.
So I think it's really a serious red line. I really wish he hadn't gone from 15.
Away from corporate taxes now to the household. This is what the president unveiled last night. This seems to be the headline from that speech in PA. Watch.
But this change, along with a lower tax rate, would likely give the typical American household a $4,000 pay raise. Could be a lot more than that, too. You haven't heard this. So about a $4,000 amount of money additional for the American family to spend. That's very exciting.
I believe that's over 8 years for a family making $50,000 a year. Go ahead and tell us the impact of that. Selling.
Well, that's important for these people for their political arguments. But my view, that is not the key element here in this program, is the static revenue estimates are not what's key. What's key here is creating jobs, output, employment. I would like to see every American's tax bill go up because they earn a lot more and because they have jobs that they otherwise didn't have. That's what really drives me to love this, is it'll create jobs, output, employment. That's the key. And it's not what happens statically to a person's payroll or income. What really is important is the dynamic aspects of growth, and that's what this will do. And by the way, Bill, just for the record, it will pay for itself very nicely, thank you. We'll have an additional over $1 trillion in tax revenues over the next decade because of those cuts.
Two quick questions. How different is it from the 1980s and Ronald Reagan?
It's very similar to the early 1980s. I mean, Ronald Reagan got a huge boost politically that Donald Trump is not. If you'll remember when Hinckley shot at him and did not kill him, Reagan's favorables went way, way up, and therefore he was able to get his bill passed in 1981 quite easily, quite handily.
Yeah. Okay, so then you tell us then, in 2017, how could you make it better?
Well, this bill is pretty good. I think it's a great start. I mean, I think if he is in his full 8 years in office, I think he has one more big tax bill coming, which may be 4 or 5 years from now, that really solves a lot more problems, like we did with the '86 Tax Act. And by the way, by then, once the economy's going, you'll see all the Democrats join us and Republicans and bring us a bipartisan growth package.
What about Rand Paul and Bob Corker? Let's see where they come down on all this.
I'm sorry about them, but you know, we had those guys too in 1980s. Believe me, Reagan was not the most favorable person in the Republican Party. You should have heard what Bush said about him, what Dole said about him, what all these other Republicans bashed him nonstop, just like they do Reagan. Once we get that growth bill, you're going to see everyone joining our camp, and it's not far away.
Has 1,000 champions, right?
It does. Yes, it does. Thank you.
Live in Nashville. Talk again. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill.
Very interesting. Can't wait to talk more with Gary Cohn on that in a bit. Meanwhile, the Boy Scouts of America rolling out what is perhaps the biggest change in its 100-year history. And not everybody's happy about it.
Also, an American family freed after 5 years in the hands of a Taliban group in Afghanistan. What we are now learning about their ordeal in captivity.